All right, and we are live. Uh, Okay, welcome everyone to lesson number 8 of Lambda School's uh, mini code bootcamp. So excited to have you guys. We've been covering the fundamentals of web development, all these building blocks over the last couple days, and today we're going to get into some of the glue that holds everything together. We're going to get into all the JavaScript stuff, and so we've first we started with like just general programming, like functions, if statements, for loops, all that stuff. Today we're going to apply that, so you're going to actually see how we use it all together. We're going to build our house. We have a pretty fun homework assignment for you guys to work on tonight. Um, Before I lose people in the recording, I want to make a point. This is a new thing that we've added, for this pre-course stuff, and there is a bug in the tests, and so I worry about running the tests for this one tonight. Just get it to where it works. So if you're in the boot camp that's starting on Monday, don't stress about the tests right now. You can if you want, but we've pushed up a fix. But then our version is fixed, but then that's not represented down on all of your computers, and so. There's a somewhat complicated process you have to go through to retrieve that fix and get it down into your cloned repo. And that's something that is for another day. That would take too much time to work through that and explain and dig into that. So just don't worry about the tests for this. Just get the web page up and then follow the instructions, fill in all the functions, and get it so it works. So that's what we'll be focusing on. So again, for those of you who are looking to finish things up before class starts next week, again, don't worry about completing the unit test. We won't look at the tests for this file specifically. Just go through, do your best job, and try to get it to work. So that's the main thing to focus on with this assignment. So just have fun with it, get some practice in, and that's all we're looking for out of this. For those of you that, let's see, as well, February classes, clearly, it's full, kind of last minute. So if there are any of you that are thinking about it, I would love for any of you to come and apply to our March class if you would like. It's a lot of fun. We teach a lot of good things, and it's a lot of fun for our students. A new change that we're making today that we're just announcing. So this is based off of some feedback we've been getting from our hiring partners and from surveys that we've been doing, and we have now added Python and Django development to our curriculum. So we teach, so on the back end, we teach Node and Express and MongoDB, but then we also put a heavier focus on Python, Django, and MySQL. So just between Python and JavaScript, those are two of the most in-demand programming languages. So we're going to place a heavier focus on that for Python backend development. So you would be equipped to be able to apply for Python jobs right out of the gate. So it's something where you'd have the fundamentals to be able to pick it up on your own, but we're going to formally teach it so that way you're ready just day one after graduation to be able to jump in and immediately contribute on a Python stack. So that's a new change that we is just as of like we haven't even really announced this very much yet, but we've had some meetings today and yesterday finalizing that. So anyway, Python, fun stuff. For those of you that are doing the class, does it take away from teaching Node.js? No, we cut down on the capstone project time. We found that it was just too long. And so we have reduced the capstone project portion. And now instead of teaching MySQL in relation to Node, so we used to have the students, they would learn MySQL and integrate it with a Node Express server. Now we're just going to teach MySQL with a Python server. So we're shifting the context of that. So that will also be Python review, and then we're going to be just upping the amount of Python. Essentially, there'll be 2 weeks, a 2-week period where we'll be doing more Python and Django. So that used to be for capstone projects, but we just found that 6 weeks for capstone projects is just unnecessary. It's a little too long, and it's more effective for our students if we cut that down and include more material. So yeah, Python will start with the February class. So even our current classes that are enrolled, most of them will still get those Python changes. There's only, I think, only the first two. They'll still like have access to it and then come back and audit it and see those changes and stuff, audit classes. But anyway, so new fun change. We teach a lot of fun things. We speak with our hiring partners and constantly try to get their feedback because we have two customers. One is you guys. We want you guys to be the best developers possible. We want you to get a job as quickly as possible. And then the next customer is the companies that we work with. And so we want to get our students. We want to produce a product, or you guys, that is skilled enough and above a certain level, so that way our customers, the companies, will want to hire you as quickly as possible. And so anyway, that's something that we're looking at. So we do work backwards from them. And so we've been teaching Python, but now we're going to actually teach Django, which is a backend framework with Python. So Django is the most widely used Python framework for backend development. There's some lighter ones like Flask that we had looked at, but most of the jobs are with Django. And anyway, so fun stuff. We do not teach PHP, but between Node and Express, JavaScript on the back end, and then Python, those are two of the more common backends now that are both trending upwards. We don't teach PHP though. There's a lot of different backend languages and frameworks. PHP usage, if I remember from the charts off the top of my head, is trending down. There's not as many companies that are using PHP nowadays, but it depends. I think Facebook still uses a lot of PHP though. They originally used a lot of PHP. I don't know if that's currently what they're at now, but yeah. So anyway, let's dive in and talk about some code. Okay. All right. So I have some notes and stuff from when I was in here playing around with some things. Okay. All right. So again, with this homework tonight, don't worry about the test for it. There's a couple typos and stuff in here that we need to fix. Sorry about that, guys. A couple little things that we need to do to clean this up a little. So anyway, if you have any questions about instructions, or it can get a little, tricky to follow along if you're not confident in your, in the syntax. And so just, ask lots of questions and we'll be able to go through and be able to help you out. All right. So lesson 8, DOM. Okay. So there's one concept that I want to review with you guys real quick before we dive into this. Okay. So you'll need to know this for tonight. So here's a class. I'm going to call this class user, instructor, and then we'll have our options object, and this little bit of a review, but this time. Password. All right. Password. So this right here creates our user. I'll log out the user. All right, so we see sometimes it does this when you're printing out objects, JSBin. It kind of throws out some funny stuff, but like it printed out all the code for some reason. That's a JSBin thing, and it does that sometimes. I'm not sure why, but yeah. So anyway, here's the object. So this creates the object. So again, I'm going fast over this because this is a review, but I'm going to show you another way to write this. So class user, we have our constructor. It sets the properties in the new object that's being created. Okay. So there's another way to write this, and that's as a function. Functions, these are options. And then inside of here, we're going to go this dot email is equal to options dot email. This dot password is equal to options dot password, like this. So I'll comment out the class. And these are doing the exact same thing. So this function syntax and the class syntax, they are doing the exact, same thing. So the, yeah, so they're doing the exact same thing. It's two different syntaxes. This is a newer ES6 way of doing it. But it's syntactic sugar. This gets compiled down into this older version of doing it, actually. So, and then if we were to add a method onto the prototype here, we'll do say hi. All right, and this right here is going to add it onto the user prototype. So the say hi. So again, as a review, this will be on the, this is where this is going to live. It's going to be on the prototype. And then to do the same thing here, we're going to do user.prototype.say hi. All right, so okay. So those are identical. So this code up here is identical to this one down here. Okay, just two different ways of writing it. There's some boilerplate code written into this into your assignment that's going to have you play around with this older style. So you're going to be creating you're going to have a to-do class because you're going to be building a to-do list, and the to-do class is going to have a it's going to be set up as a function, and so you'll receive a parameter, or you have a parameter that you'll write for an argument that's going to come in, and then you're going to set a property on this new object that's being generated, and then you're also going to add a method onto the prototype of that class. So just wanted to review this. They've had some questions about that, so just want to review this right here. So they are equivalent. You could rewrite that portion of the code as a class, and it would function exactly the same. But just anyway, that's the way the boilerplate code is written. That's another thing that we're gonna adjust that to the ES6 way. What happened is I changed the lesson plan to do ES6 a couple of lessons ago, and I didn't realize that we had this written in this boilerplate code that you guys had already cloned onto your machines. So anyway, apologize, that was my bad on that. But anyway, you're getting practice with two different ways of creating classes and instantiating that code. So anyway, good stuff. So just wanted to touch base on this just to review, because I've some people that have worked ahead have asked me some questions about it. So just wanted to make sure that everyone's on the same page with this. Okay. All right. People are asking about Slack availability. You guys can stay in the Slack. So we have two different Slack teams. The one that you guys are on right now, Lambda School Prep, that's a free one. It's an open one. You guys can always be a part of this one. We have a separate one that's a premium account that we have to pay for, and that's where all of our live students get moved to. So on day one, or a little before day one, we're going to move you into the onto the other Slack team, and then get you added to a channel there. So anyway, so if you're not doing the full-time class, whatever, you're welcome to just stay in here for as long as you want, and we'll be using these same channels for the mini bootcamp next month. And then if you guys are doing our full camp, then you get added over into the other Slack team. Okay, all right, let's dive into, that was our little 15-minute review. Let's dive into some fun stuff. Okay. All right, let's, so if you look at under pre-course lesson 8 DOM here in this README file, these are just again the instructions for the assignments, and this is essentially the lesson plan too. I have some additional notes and things that I cover, but essentially we just look at this. Okay. All right. So, okay, we've talked about HTML, CSS. We've done JavaScript independently. Now we're going to add in JavaScript so it can actually work with the HTML and CSS manipulation and stuff like that. We can change styles. We can change behavior on the page, and anyway, do some fun stuff. So, all right. So the way that the first thing we're going to talk about is how to inject. Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the DOM. And so, what does the DOM mean? DOM, that's the name of this assignment. So DOM stands for Document Object Model. So you write HTML, you write CSS, and then that's hosted on a server. And then what happens is that when you type in a URL up in the address bar, like right up in here, or if I go to let's do wikipedia.org. I type in wikipedia.org, and what happens is my browser shoots a request out over the internet, and then there's a server that has all the Wikipedia code on it, and then that code for the Wikipedia website gets sent back over the internet, over the network, to my computer, to my browser, and then my browser takes the HTML, takes the CSS, and then it reads those files that it receives, and then it builds out a web page. Okay, and so we want to be, after the web page is built, we want to be able to interact with the different pieces of HTML. And so we're not going to go in and actually write and change the file and then reload the file. What we're doing is there's an object in memory called the DOM, the Document Object Model. It's an object that gets created in memory in our program, a global object that we can access. And through that, we can access everything on the web page. It's the glue for how to connect the JavaScript to the HTML and the CSS. So it's a global object in our JavaScript code, and it makes it so we can go in and access and change everything on the page. And we can do lots of fun stuff. So the way that we get our JavaScript into our HTML is I'll just write it in here. So we have our HTML tag. Here's our body tag. Head. Okay, so these are the basic pieces of our HTML page, and there's a thing that we can add in called a script tag. All right, so a script tag, it has to have a closing bracket, but with the script tag we can write JavaScript in here. So if I go over here and run with JS and pull the console up, run, we see hi prints out. And so the JavaScript, we can stick it in between an opening and closing script tag, and then this all gets interpreted and run as JavaScript. So so we can write out as anything we want in here. Any of the valid JavaScript that you guys have learned to this point, we can all write in between these script tags. And so we'll run this again, and we see a bunch of stuff prints out. Okay, so it's all the same thing. So okay, so right now we have this script tag that's just it allows us to manually stick JavaScript in like this. And if you remember back to our styling, You'll remember that we could do a similar thing with CSS. We could write it in the HTML file. That gets clunky and unwieldy pretty fast. And so we don't write our JavaScript in our HTML file. What we do is we have a separate JavaScript file that we link in and connect. And the way that you do that is by adding a couple attributes onto the script tags. And so we'll do src, and then it would be something like /script.js, or the name of the file.js. And then this would go and it would connect that JavaScript from that file, and it injects it into your HTML file, and so we can get access to it. And so this is how we link our JavaScript files in. And so in your homework for today, let me pull that up. And so I'm actually playing around with some stuff. You can look up in here, and you don't have to touch the HTML file, but if you look up at the top, you see here it says src, and then it has a path to the JavaScript file. And so it's very similar to the link tag for the styles, but it connects in the JavaScript. So again, something that people will often mix up the link and the script syntax. So a link is self-closing. You can actually leave off the little slash on the end, and it doesn't change it. But a script tag, you have to have a closing one. There's also an async property on here that we always want to make sure is on there. The async, this ties into some discussions more for later, but this is something you can go look up more on your own if you want. But essentially, it has to do with making sure that stuff doesn't get blocked as resources are getting loaded for the web page. And so you used to have to put script tags down at the bottom of the body to prevent issues from happening, but now we can just stick them up here in the head and put this async attribute on there. So don't worry about that too much right now. Just know you need to put async on there, and because usually what's happening is your script tags here will have a link to a location on a server somewhere else, and it's going to go out to that server and grab the JavaScript or grab some of these other things, or depending on how it's structured. And so so sometimes your HTML file and your JavaScript file, they'll arrive on your computer at different times, and so you have to just be careful about that. That's getting into some pretty advanced setup stuff, so don't worry about it too much. But anyway, async is good and makes it so your page looks better as it loads. Okay, and you have this type here for text/JavaScript. Okay, this links it all together. All right, so now that we've linked it together, and we don't need this here in we don't need this here inside of a JS bin, because it's automatically connecting the HTML and the JavaScript. So we actually don't need to do the HTML body either, because it's all inside of the body. So, well, not necessarily, but it's just to keep things simple. I'm gonna remove that and just stick a div in here. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through some of the basics for how to access items. So one of the first things we need to do is in our JavaScript file, we need to be able to find elements in the HTML file. We need to go out, find elements, and then we can change things or do different things to it. So so this div right here, I'm gonna give it a class name. Oh yeah, so let's this class, this div. Well, no, that'll be do something different. Okay, so I'll make a couple of these, and this one's different, and this one's different. Okay, so these have their class name is different from these two. All right, so now so we have 4 different divs on our page. We could say actually let's do top. Well, no, never mind. That would be more like an ID. Yeah, let's just leave it like that. Okay, so we have a global object that's available inside of our JavaScript. So just like we have console, which is available everywhere, console's an object, and it has a log method on it. We can run our string on. We see the output print there. So console is a globally available object. Another one is document. The document object gives us access to the DOM. This is the object through which we can use different methods and properties to be able to access the HTML and then dynamically change it and set it. Okay, so I'm going to do document dot, and is the first method we're going to talk about. It's called get elements by class name. Okay, so document.get elements by class name. Then we give it a string. Move that over a little bit. Okay. All right. So this right here, we reference the object, this global object. We call the get elements by class name function that's on it, this method, and we give it a string, mydiv, which matches up with this class name, and then it's going to produce an array. And that line's getting pretty long, but around here. Okay. And then let's log it out. Yeah, let me know if this is too small. Okay, hopefully this kind of helps out a little. All right. So now if we run this, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. And if I open up the console on the bottom, I'll get a little bit clearer of a thing that's printing out. But let me change this to output just so we see it below. So I'm gonna hit run with JS. All right, so down here on the bottom, we're gonna see this HTML collection with 2, so it's a type of an array. So it's like an array, but we can expand it and we can see that there are 2 divs inside of it. And so then we can do stuff to these divs. Okay. All right. So again, it just grabbed an array of references to these two divs, and in a little bit we'll go over some ways that we can like do interesting things with them. Let's now make a div with an ID on it. I'll make it an h1. Okay, so I'll stick this inside of that first one. So we have my div up here, and then we have our ID of header. So there's another way that we can target that. So we have document.get elements by class name. We can also do get element by ID. And we specify the name of the ID. So get element by ID. This is going to go through and search through the DOM tree and find an element with the ID of header. And so notice here how it's get element singular, because there should only be one element with that ID. That ID should only be used in one place. Get elements right here, classes can be reused and should be reused. And so it's producing an array. Generally arrays, you have plural names, or a plural name will imply it's an array, whereas a singular name element implies just a single value. All right, let me yeah, actually, there we go. All right, okay. I'll come in and mess around with this later. There we go. I'm just going to get rid of that. Great. Okay. All right. Just wanted to get rid of those other things that was logging out. Okay. All right. So now let's log out our header. So run it, and we see here's our header, and it's actually what's in text, and it's kind of overlapping there because of the way I have it scrunched. But if we run this, we see that the header is printing out. As I hover over it, we actually see it highlighted up in the right. But so this found the header in the document, returned a reference to it. So now this header variable, we can use that to go in and modify and change things. There's another way that we can target things, and this one's the way that I generally do it. It's called a query selector. So let's, I'll make a paragraph tag here. Okay, so here's our paragraph. What we can do here is we can say const text is equal to document dot query selector, and then in query selector we just pass in our CSS selector. So remember, like we have like dot idiv, like dot for a class, like this is how you write it for CSS, or header. So essentially it's just it's get elements by class name and get element by ID all like put into one essentially, and then we just have to use like the pound sign or dot for the different elements. Okay. An important thing to remember though with this is that the query selector only returns the first item that matches. So if you do it with the class, you're not going to get the entire array of all the items. So that's an important thing to remember with this one. But so in here I can do text. All right. So now let's come down here and console.log. And let me clear this out. Oops. Clear, and then run it. We see there's text, a reference to this. So the stuff I'm logging is all logging down here in this console below. As we see hi, so it's all just printing out down there. Okay. All right. So these are the main ways to go in and select things. Okay. So with query selector, yeah, let me just do one more. So another way to do it, so let's get all the divs. We can do document.querySelector all. And this is going to go out and, so it's like query selector, but it gets everything. So if we wanted to get, or if we wanted to get all of the like mydiv ASDF classes, again, we use the dot here. So again, query selector, the query selector ones, you have to use the dot and the pound and all that, just like with CSS. But then, anyway, it's a little bit less verbose than some of these other methods, I think. I like using this syntax. So, but again, oops, not divs, that's already been declared. Let me call this. Okay, let's run that out again. We get this. Now pretty much everything on here has been selected by one of these. So these are the different ways for us to go in and grab stuff off the HTML page, and we can do this inside of our JavaScript file. So now let's go in and let's start changing some stuff. All right. So the first thing, I'm going to clear this out now, is let's do div here. I'm going to give it an ID of container. And then let's, I'm going to give it a style real quick in here. I'm going to say container, I'll give it a height of 100 pixels, width of 100 pixels, and background color blue. Okay, so there's our div. I'm going to hide the CSS panel. All right, so there's our div. And so we can use JavaScript to create new HTML elements that we want to add onto the page. And so I'm going to say const p is equal to document.create element. And this is going to create a new paragraph tag, a new paragraph element that we're going to be adding in. It's not, this doesn't write it into the file, it just changes it on the DOM object. And so if the page is refreshed, this is gone. But here we have our so new paragraph tag that we're creating, and then and there's some other things we can do to it. So with p, I'm going to say p.inner HTML And what we're going to give it is some text. And then now we're going to do document dot query selector container. So we got to reference our container. This is big, but it gets a little verbose, which is actually why we mostly use different libraries to handle a lot of this. Most of the stuff is actually abstracted away. So when you learn React and jQuery and stuff like that, there's a lot of shortcut methods that really simplify this. But the fundamentals are the same, and the concepts are the same. So it's really good to get used to and to learn about. But then in practice, 99% of the time, most of this stuff is actually like abstracted away. It's like if you're driving the car, like when you're driving a car, you like turn the steering wheel and then that makes the wheels turn. Like you're not actually getting down in there and manually moving the wheels, or if you push the gas, it's not like you're not manually going in and increasing the speed of the engine, and changing all of that. It's you're just pushing like the gas pedal. And which is better, because if you had to worry about getting in there and manually changing things, you wouldn't be able to drive anywhere. And so it's this abstraction interface that makes it faster, and so or easier to work with. And so when you hear about like React and jQuery and Angular and Vue.js and Backbone, and there's a whole bunch of them, those are libraries of shortcut functions essentially that are written in JavaScript that make it so you can abstract away a lot of the kind of the lower level stuff, and they allow you to build more complex applications. The stuff you're doing today is pretty simple and straightforward, but when you're getting into building something like Amazon.com, you actually have libraries and stuff like that will help you out in here. So, little side note for where that stuff all fits in with this ecosystem. Okay, so the inner HTML, we're going to set that to some text here. And so then our paragraph tag is now going to have some text in it. So the inner HTML sets the content of the element, and so again, we create a paragraph tag, we set the inner HTML, and then now we are going to now we have to add this to the now we have to add it to the container. So then what we're going to do is we're going to do container dot append child. We'll add it in, and if we run that, we see that the sum text tag, it's a little harder to see, but let me to make it pop down. But okay, so we'll see that the sum text paragraph tag was added into the div. So container.append child p. So we created a paragraph tag dynamically, and then we added it into the container, and we set it, and did some interesting stuff with it. Someone's asking, is it easy to figure out what library the website is using? You could look at their source code, and you might be able to figure it out in there. There's some different Chrome extensions that will show you what they're using too, that you can look at. Okay. All right. So we can also set. You can change the styles. You can change the different attributes on it. So you could dynamically set. So like an images src property, you could dynamically set that. You'll see a little more about that in the notes. You won't really need to do that for tonight's assignment, but just like so, those are some of the other things you can do with this. Specifically, let's talk about the style now. So the paragraph tag, let's change the color to be red. So let's do, so what you do is you do p.style, and then we can do background. I think it's a color. Let's see if I remember this off the top of my head. So we'll set the color. Yep. Okay. So, or yeah, for the background color of the element. So You'll notice that it's this is called snake case instead of or I'm sorry, this is called camel case right here, and this is called snake case. So the methods on the objects are all in camel case. They don't use the hyphens, whereas here in the CSS, so it just converts it between snake case and camel case, but otherwise they stay the same. Okay. Can you put HTML instead of inner HTML? Yes, yes, you can. All right, so now we're setting the style. So again, we can go in and dynamically change stuff. Okay, you can add additional additional class names. So let's do name yellow, background color yellow. All right, so now what we can do here is let's say, so after we've added this in, now let's go through and then let's change the blue background to yellow. New container dot, actually, never mind, that's not gonna work because the ID is like that. What we can do is let's say p dot class name. We can set it equal to yellow. I'm going to give it the yellow class. And if we run this, it's JS. Okay, so that's I have to do that before. Okay, that's kind of a weird contrived example. So it's actually a okay, so now it's turning yellow. Okay, so so when I set the manual style like this, it must be setting it directly on the element, and that overwrites the property specified on class. Let's do this. Let's let me change the class here to just be color, so it's the text color. Okay. So now let me go put this down here because I thought this would work. If we run with JS, we see that it does work. So we set the inner HTML to the text. We set the background color to red. Then we add it onto the DOM, but we still have a reference to it. And so then we're going to change the class name to yellow. So we give it the class of yellow. The class of yellow changes the text to yellow. So you can see there's some pretty, this right now we're just, running down the, down the list, but there's some pretty complex interactions and things you can change. And you really have unlimited access to, the HTML, the way you modify it and the way you change it. Okay. All right. So you're going to need to use so class name and .id or like .classname or .id. You'll need to use that for the assignment tonight. You'll need to use this inner HTML thing where you set the content. Append child, you need to use that as well. Setting the background, well, you won't have to set background color. All the styling's taken care of you, and taken care of for you. So you're just going to walk through and add in some different things. Just fill out the JavaScript functions. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do something pretty cool. I'm going to add a button. Okay. Button called Click Me. And I'll give this an ID of VPN for button. Okay, so now what we're going to do here is we're going to do what's called an event listener. And so in the browser, or when you're interacting with the HTML, there are what's called events that are firing. And so based off of user interaction, there are these global messages that are sent out that you can listen to, and they announce what the user is doing, and so you can listen for it, and then based off of what the user is doing, you can change what the app is doing. So, for example, when I move my mouse around, when I come over this element, it's automatically firing off all of these hover events. It's saying, all right, the user's mouse is hovering over the blue element. All right, the user's mouse is hovering over the button. If I click on the button, it fires a click event saying, all right, the user's mouse clicked on the button. If I click down, it fires a click down event as soon as I release the click. it sends out another event saying that I clicked up. If I press any keys on my keyboard, it detects that as well. And so essentially, it's just these things it's automatically built in, and it's automatically listening for all these things happening. And then what you can do is you can tap into that and say, all right, when I detect a click on this element, then I want to run some JavaScript. And so you can tap into these broadcasts, all these messages that are constantly being broadcast. So you can tap into that, and you can add some custom JavaScript that runs when these different events occur. And so this is how we create interaction, and this is how you make it so the code changes everything based off of user interaction and user input. This is how you can go in and create a game. You can make a browser-based game based off of this, because you can detect what they're doing with the keyboard and the mouse and the way they're interacting with the page. And then you can use JavaScript to change and move and do things with the HTML and the CSS. And that's how you get it to move. And that's how you can build a game from that, or do some pretty crazy things. So let's get in now and add one of the add an event listener. So we're going to, the first one we're going to do, so a clicking one is super common. So I'm going to do, let's see, const button is equal to document dot query selector, button like that. Okay. All right. So now we have a reference for our button. And then now what we can do is we can say button dot on click. We set that equal to a function. So now what's going to happen is that every time we click on click me, then this function right here is going to run. So I click that. Let's see. Well, I messed that up somehow. Let's see. Oh, run with JS. There we go. Okay. So you have to click the little run with JS button, otherwise it won't automatically update it in there. So I press click me, it detects a click event, and then my function here gets fired. And so on every element, when you select it, there's an onClick property, and if you set it equal to a function, that function will get run whenever that element is clicked. Okay. So this is for an onClick. There are different types of events other than a click. If we go and Google this, there's a whole bunch. Let's do browser events. Here's event reference on MDN. If we come down, there's a whole bunch. So like focus, blur, errors, animations, submitting a form, key down, key press, key up. These tell you all about and then you can figure out what key they pressed. Mouse events, so like mouse enter, mouse over, mouse move, mouse down, mouse up. These are all constantly firing based off of everything that you're doing in the browser. And then you can tap in and listen to any of these. A lot of these are more advanced, and you're not going to be touching these as much, but some of them, especially like clicking, is a super common one that you'll use a lot. But many of these you'll never ever use. But stuff like clicking is a really common one. Sometimes mouse over is another common one. Okay. All right. So now let's change it to where instead of so I'm going to go through and let's modify this. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So I'm going to get rid of all this paragraph stuff real quick. Okay. All right, so now run with JS. All right, so now we just have our blue button. So now what we're going to do is when I click here, I'm going to create a paragraph tag and add it into the blue box, but only when I click. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'll make it an H1. Well, const H1 is equal to document dot create element H1. And now let's do h1.inner HTML is equal to header. And then we're going to say container dot append child. I have to double check these. Append child. Okay. Oh, and actually, let's set the color on it too. Let's say h1 dot style dot color is equal to. Okay. All right, so we're going to create an h1. We're going to set the set its text or the inner HTML to this, and then h1.style.color. We'll set it to the color red. The text will be red, and then we will add it to the DOM. So now if we run with JS, we'll come over here, and I click that, and our header appears. And we see that as I keep clicking it, it keeps adding more headers because it doesn't delete the old one. It's now we just have tons and tons of headers that it keeps adding. But this is pretty cool. It's doing this in response to us clicking on a button. I mean, this right here, there's a lot you can do with these pieces. Like these are, simple little Legos, and you can build a ton of stuff from this. Someone's asking, do mobile browsers have any extra events? Yeah, there's like touch events and press and zooming and stuff like that. I don't know. There are some mobile specific ones. The touch events like touch up, touch down, touch move. So different touch ones. So you don't call it click in a browser. You'd like for a mobile, you'd call it press. Okay, let's see. So someone's asking, so a lot of the stuff you want to appear on the page could be actually coded in multiple places. Looks like the content, the actual text could be in the JS file or in the HTML. The styling could be in any HTML, JS, or CSS. The structure could be in the HTML or the JS. Very different conventional preference on how to divide things up. Seems like it could get confusing fast if you don't know where to look for what. Yes. If you're not careful, it turns into a big ball of spaghetti super fast, and it becomes incredibly difficult to debug it. Incredibly difficult. So when web applications started becoming more complex, someone created jQuery, which simplified a lot of this code. But that jQuery still turns into spaghetti code. That's where stuff like React and then a thing called Redux that comes out, or that came out. These are tools that help us to keep things organized. Generally, don't put styling on HTML elements. Your styling should all happen in CSS. With your JavaScript, you want to keep it minimal, your actual DOM changes. The more you can do it with just pure CSS, the better. That being said, there's stuff that you just can't get away from with JavaScript. So this leads into a big discussion on best practices, but and that could be a good thing for you to Google to continue to research and look into is like, what are the best practices? How do we create, scalable code that, that works? Really good question. I'm glad you guys are thinking in those terms because that's those are really important questions, and that's influenced a lot of the changes and things that have happened. Okay. So there's one other thing I want to talk about. So there's a more generic way we can add event listeners. So instead of on click, which is very specific just for clicking, we can do add event listener. And the way this works is it's actually a function that we give a callback to. This right here is our callback. Again, a callback function is just a function we're passing into another function. So remember that the word callback is going to be used a couple times in your homework assignment. And that's probably one of the trickier things about tonight's homework is understanding that idea of passing your functions. So you're going to write some functions, and then you're going to pass them as callbacks into other functions. And so it can be a little tricky, but that's an important pattern to start to get used to. Okay, and then here in this first argument, we can specify the first argument. We can specify the name of the class that we're gonna, or sorry, the name of the event that we want to target. So what I could do here is I could say button on mouse enter. That's when the mouse like hovers over it. So now, as soon as I mouse over the button, then it's going to run this code. So now I'm going to run with JS. And with the click me, I am not clicking, but as soon as my mouse passes over it, it's going to run that function. Let me change this to the container. Okay, so now it's on the container. And so now our button doesn't even do anything. But as soon as my mouse gets over the blue, then it runs it. And so as I flick it around over and over, you see the little scroll bar here on the side getting smaller and smaller because it's adding, tons and tons of headers to it. So yeah, so add event listener, and then you can target any of these events that are referenced here. And again, just looking at MDN is a great place to look. This is like your dictionary, your place to go and check all this stuff. Okay, all right, these are the main pieces that you'll need for tonight. You'll have an add event listener. You're gonna have a to-do list, which actually I think I have this up and running. Yeah, okay. So this is your to-do list. When you get this all completed, then what you'll be doing is you'll type in like my first thing to do, and then you'll click on the add button, and then it's going to add it onto your list here. Okay, so there's some other behavior and things that you'll have to add out, some different extra credit things. But so again, don't worry about don't worry about getting the test to pass for this. For you guys, for the group when we do it next month, I'll be checking that with them. But for you guys, just do your best, try to get this to work, and put in as much practice as you can with your JavaScript, and that's the main thing that we want you to accomplish before Monday. And then a lot of this stuff will be reviewed and gone over next week. Okay. Let's see, Zach's asking let's see, well, real quick, someone's saying separation of concerns, always have to try and keep away from one another, HTML from structure, CSS for styling. Yep, yeah, separation of concerns is a key thing. You don't want to just do your styling with JavaScript. You want to do it in CSS. Don't write your styles directly on the elements. Yeah, you want to try to keep them separated, and then yeah. Yeah. Okay. Zach's asking, what do you mean in the homework by give to-do shell a class of to-do shell? I think that is what it means. Pretty sure that is what it means. So maybe, yeah, I'd have to go in and double check that. Just from looking at that part right there, I'm pretty sure you have that right. Let's see. Oh, it's different. A different person posting the answer. Yeah, that's the Slack background pictures threw me off. Yeah, yeah, just means to-do shell.class name is equal to the string to-do shell. Yep. All right. Hey Ben, is there a meeting for the CSA class tomorrow? If so, do you know what time it is? I don't know off the top of my head. I'll ask about that. I'm pretty sure there is one. We always do one on the Friday before, but that's what we've done before. But I'm not the one that schedules that and sets that up, so I'll have to double check with the person who runs that. But I believe that you guys do have like a question and answer, like a orientation type of a thing tomorrow to make sure you guys have all of your tools ready and your computers all set up and ready and good to go. So that way we can hit the ground running on Monday, because we move at a pretty fast pace on Monday, and just go into some pretty go into some more advanced JavaScript things and move at a fast pace. All right. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. It's been fun having you here for these 8 lessons. And as you've worked through this, it's again, I've taught you how to dribble a basketball and make a layup, and shoot the ball, and now you just have to practice it a bunch, to get to a point where you're good with it. But you have learned how to piece these things together, and you can build pretty much anything that's out there. There's different libraries and tools you can continue to study that will make it easier and more efficient. But these building blocks that we've taught you are the basics for what everything is built off of. So all this stuff on the Wikipedia page, this is all built using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Amazon or the games or all this stuff, it's all just built using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, pieced together in the right way. So there's a lot that you can do with the stuff that we've covered in these 2 days or 2 weeks. So yeah, fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. With this, you can do pretty much anything. There's more stuff you should learn to make it better, but to do more advanced things and different libraries and stuff. But there's a lot you can do with this already. So have fun with it. Build some cool things. The best way to really master this stuff is to actually build things. The more time you spend building things and doing stuff, then the better off you'll be, and the more it'll sink in. So practice, practice, practice. If you're interested in attending any of our future full-time classes, feel free to reach out to me or Austin. We'd love to have you apply. The people who are here doing this mini boot camp, especially the ones that have stuck around for the full 2 weeks, you're the type of people that we want in our course. Because if you've shown a lot of discipline to be able to stick around and do this in the evenings, and and you guys have been asking lots of great questions and everything. So, would encourage you guys to apply. Would love to have you in our full classes. Again, they're free until you get a job, making more than 50,000 or more a year. And using a job that's related to the skills that we've taught you. So yeah, fun stuff. The artificial intelligence classes, so they likewise focus on computer science fundamentals. They use that same part of the curriculum from our main CS Academy, but then they diverge and focus more on so data science and machine learning. So there's a couple different levels of jobs in machine learning. There's the ex-Stanford professor guys who are making $1 million plus salaries at Google. You're not going to be at that level after a course, but there are people that make between, I don't know, like 80, 90K up to 150 or 200, like in that kind of a range. And that's what we're shooting for with this type of with our training, is for people to get into that level to where you can go into a company as an engineer and be able to connect their data sets with the right machine learning algorithms to gather insights and to be able to fit it into their ecosystem. So you'd be a software engineer that understands thoroughly the fundamentals of machine learning and data science. So that way you can go in and work in that type of a role where you're applying machine learning into real use cases. So it's not just like a data analyst where you're just plugging things in, but you're actually getting in there and having a deeper understanding of the different types of neural networks and the different types of learning algorithms and unstructured and unsupervised learning and all that stuff. So it's heavily focused in Python. There are some math prerequisites. It's still in the works. We've actually pushed this back a few times, just having to make sure that we have the right people, and we've been putting a lot of time into it to make sure that it's something really good. We have some PhDs that are working on it, but it's so I think right now there's a calculus requirement, so you have to be comfortable with basic calculus. If I remember correctly, we will be posting more specific requirements on that. We actually just pushed a bunch of updates to our website today that have to do with the machine learning course. So if you're interested in that, go and check that out. But that'll be starting in the next couple months. Let's see. I do not know if the ML course covers probabilistic graphical models. Yeah, I'm not sure. let's see, how long after the mini boot camp does our front of the line interview last? Well, that was mainly for February, but if you've done the mini boot camp, then that's you get a lot of extra points for that. So just so just reach out if you've done the mini boot camp, then we'll anytime you want to join, we can expedite you through the process because essentially you've done the pre-course work, and so we'll bump you to the closer to the front and give you you'll get your interview and stuff like that faster if you've done the mini boot camp, because then we know that you're already, technically speaking, like on the technical side of things, prepared for the course. How do I get in touch with you in a couple days about the March class? Direct message me or Austin, or you can just go to our website and directly apply and then just mention that you're doing the mini boot camp right now, or that say that you completed the mini boot camp, and then we'll spot that as we go through the applications, and then we'll prioritize talking to you. When or how will we find out when the meeting is tomorrow for the new February class? I imagine an email will be sent out. There will also be an announcement on the other Slack team. So make sure that so make sure that you've joined any Slack invitations or anything like that, and then I'll make sure that announcement gets out. It will be recorded because it is like an evening thing the week before class, like, a couple days before it begins. So it is something that usually not everyone can make it to it. So we do record it so people can, the people that miss it can go in and watch the orientation. Let's see. Julian's asking, can you get to an expert level with no previous experience with the full-time 6-month classes? It really depends on the student. We've had some really gifted students come through that, like anecdotally, we had this one guy who, was a Haitian immigrant. He'd never made more than $15 an hour in his life. Hadn't done, he'd played around and done a little bit of self-taught coding stuff before coming in, but nothing too significant. And he was just really smart and picked it up super fast and got a senior level position. And we talked to him the other day, and he's finishing stuff early every day and just really, really doing well. And I imagine in a year or two, he'll be, at Google or something like that. So, I mean, he's really, really a sharp guy. He's obviously the top student. So it's, one of the top students. And so it really depends on the student. But for most of the students, it's, we're getting you above that junior level line. And so some people will get intermediate level positions. Some people with more prior programming experience may get into something like a senior level position. Just kind of depends. Those will be rare. Generally, we're shooting for like junior to kind of intermediate level, just like a full software engineer, beyond just an internship. That's the level that we're shooting to get everyone to. Okay. All right. And then again, classes start at Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time for those of you that are joining. We'll have a lot of fun. Have a lot of fun in there. Just it'll be a full day of JavaScript and lots of fun stuff. Okay. All right, and then for those of you that just came in and you're not going to do our courses, like, great, love to have you here, and thanks for coming and being part of our community, and we're happy to provide this service, and we'll be doing this again every month, and so send your friends our way, and happy to come and teach anyone who wants to learn. There's no no pressure. When do you usually hear back after submitting an application? That can depend. We try to do it as quickly as possible, but we do get a lot of applications, and it does fluctuate from week to week. Like some weeks there's a lot, some weeks not as many. Like it kind of depends. Like around the new year, there's a lot of people wanting to do something new in January, and so so it kind of fluctuates and gets backed up from time to time. So I'll have to, AV, will you direct message me your email and your name, and then I can look into the status of your application. if it's been a while. Or just message me and tell me when you applied. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone. If you have any questions, ask them in class, and then we'll go over them. Okay. Actually, one last question. Something I should be learning in my free time to get more familiar with the classes. If you're specifically wanting to prepare for our course, the more you can do with JavaScript, the better. That's the biggest thing that's the hardest for our new students. It's we do a lot of JavaScript programming. Just get really comfortable with writing for loops, with arrays, functions, objects. Get really comfortable with that syntax. That's the best thing you can do to prepare. If you're wanting to just hack and build things on your own, I would suggest go and learn something like jQuery or React. Learn some different tools for building out web pages, because nobody builds web pages really with just like the stuff that we went over today anymore. This is all abstracted away. This is directly changing the engine, and instead we're going to use a steering wheel and a gas pedal. So go learn how to use the steering wheels and gas pedals. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you later.